All right, diving in. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling something a little different. We're going to try to walk in the shoes of a bank manager. Then 30 bank manager interview questions and answers by Interview Prep as kind of our roadmap. I know Interview Prep doesn't exactly scream excitement, but stick with us. This deep dive, I think, is going to uncover some pretty surprising things about this role, things that go way beyond just, numbers and spreadsheets.
Yeah, it's way more dynamic than people think. You're not just managing finances, you're managing people, risks, the whole branch, really. It's almost like captaining a ship. You got to keep things running smoothly, steer through rough waters like economic downturns, and make sure everyone on board is, working together.
I love that analogy. Okay, so let's jump right into one of those rough waters scenarios.
Mm,
The source talks about dealing with a customer who's just been a victim of fraud. I mean, that's got to be a tense situation, right?
Absolutely, it's high stakes. The source really emphasizes de-escalation and empathy as the first steps. Acknowledging the customer's feelings,
Hmm.
making sure they know you understand their frustration.
Yeah, because in that moment, they're probably feeling totally vulnerable, maybe even betrayed. Just taking the time to actually listen to them must make a huge difference.
Huge. It's about validating their experience, not just jumping into policies and procedures. The source even gives some specific phrases, like saying, I understand how frustrating this must be for you.
So it's like having a script, but a human one, right?
Exactly. You're guiding the conversation, but with genuine empathy.
Makes sense. But then
Yeah.
what, after you've calmed the customer down, what are the actual steps to take, practically speaking?
Well, the source walked through it pretty clearly. First, you got to secure the account, freeze it to prevent any further unauthorized transactions. Then, you help the customer report the fraud to the bank's fraud department, explain how the investigation process works, all that.
Okay, so it's all about quick action to protect their money, but also keeping them in the loop, making sure they know what's happening every step of the way. But hold on, what about stopping this kind of thing from happening in the first place? The source mentions internal fraud, embezzlement, that kind of stuff. How does a bank manager even start to tackle that? It seems like such a minefield.
Oh, for sure, it's complex. The source suggests a multi-layered approach. One key thing is strong internal controls, like separating duties so no single employee has complete control over a transaction.
Right, so it's like checks and balances, multiple people looking at everything.
Exactly. Reduces the chance of anything slipping through the cracks. And then there's the human side of things. You got to build a culture of ethics, compliance. That means regular training, clearly communicating expectations, all that.
Yeah, it's not just about rules on paper. It's about creating an environment where everyone understands why those rules matter
It's about making it clear that integrity is non-negotiable.
and making it safe for people to speak up if they see something off, right?
Spot on. The source even suggests having an anonymous reporting system so people can raise concerns without fear of, repercussions.
Wow, so it's really about making everyone responsible for protecting the bank, both its money and its reputation. That makes a lot of sense. But let's shift gears a bit. What about the day-to-day stuff? How does a bank manager make sure their branch is actually hitting its financial goals?
Well, the source lays out a framework for setting goals, but not just any goals. They have to be clear, measurable, and aligned with the bank's overall strategy. It's about breaking those big goals down into smaller, manageable steps that can be assigned to specific people on the team.
So it's like building a roadmap, making sure everyone knows their role in getting to the destination.
Exactly. And just as important, the source talks about agility, adaptability,
Because things don't always go according to plan.
right? It's being able to look at the data, see what's working, what's not, and adjust the strategy as you go.
So you're not married to the original plan. You got to be flexible.
Absolutely, especially in a field like banking where the landscape is always changing, market shifts, new competitors, all that.
You've got to roll with the punches, so to speak.
And be open to new technologies, new approaches. The source actually encourages bank managers to, like, empower their employees to experiment, try new things.
That's interesting. So it's not just about being tech savvy yourself, it's about fostering that spirit of innovation in the whole team.
Exactly. Create an environment where people aren't afraid to try, even if it means sometimes failing, because that's how you learn and grow.
I'm starting to see this bank manager role is way more complex and dynamic than I thought.
Oh, yeah, it's a constant balancing act.
Speaking of balancing acts, the source also mentions community involvement as part of the job. What does that actually look like?
It's about being a visible presence in the community, supporting local businesses, initiatives, really building relationships that go beyond just transactions.
So it's about being a partner, not just a financial institution.
Precisely. And it's not just a feel-good thing, it's actually good for business. Building those connections can boost the bank's reputation, attract new customers, strengthen relationships.
It's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, the bank's success is tied to the community's well-being.
I like that. Okay, before we move on, got to touch on the financial side of things. How does the source address the bank manager's role in keeping costs under control?
It boils down to efficiency, making the most of resources. That means everything from negotiating good deals with suppliers to finding ways to save energy in the branch.
So it's about being smart with money without sacrificing the quality of service, right?
Yeah, gotta find that sweet spot. Keep costs down while still giving customers a good experience and making sure your team has a good working environment.
This is fascinating stuff. It's amazing how a bank manager's decisions touch so many different parts of the branch and the community, but we're just scratching the surface here. We'll be back soon to dig even deeper into those customer scenarios and how technology is changing the game in banking.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into, well, the whole world of bank management. Last time we kind of uncovered, how much more there is to this role than meets the eye. It's leadership, empathy, even a bit of predicting the future. It's wild.
Yeah, it's definitely not just about crunching numbers all day.
So let's put those skills to the test, shall we?
Mhm.
The source gives some real-world scenarios that a bank manager might face. Let's jump into one.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so one scenario is dealing with a customer whose account, has been hacked, compromised. That's going to be a tough one to handle.
Absolutely. It can get really emotional. But the source actually gives a step-by-step approach. And
Yeah.
the first thing is calming the customer down, reassuring them that their security is the top priority.
Mm.
Yeah, because in that moment, they're probably freaking out, right? Feeling like their whole financial world just got turned upside down.
Right, exactly. So just listening to them, acknowledging their feelings, that makes a huge difference.
For sure, for sure. But then what happens after you've calmed them down a bit? What are the practical steps to actually fix the situation?
So the source outlines a pretty clear process. The first thing is you got to freeze the account, stop any more unauthorized transactions from happening. Then you walk the customer through reporting the fraud to the bank's fraud department, explain how the investigation is going to work.
Okay, so it's all about acting fast to protect their money, but also like hand-holding a bit, making sure they understand what's happening every step of the way. But what about like preventing this stuff from happening in the first place? We talked last time about internal fraud, embezzlement, stuff happening from inside the bank. That just seems, I don't know, terrifying. How do you even begin to deal with that as a bank manager?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach for sure. The source recommends having really strong internal controls. One thing they mentioned is separating duties. So like no one employee has total control over any one transaction. You know what I mean?
Right, like that old saying, two heads are better than one.
Yeah, exactly. More eyes on everything, less chance of something fishy going unnoticed. But it's not just about systems, right? It's about the people too.
Yeah.
Building that culture of ethics and compliance.
Oh, for sure. So that means regular training, making those expectations super clear, like you said earlier.
Right. And making sure everyone, from the tellers to the loan officers, understands that integrity is not optional. It's like the foundation.
And that it's safe to speak up if they see something shady going on.
Right. Exactly. The source even suggests having a way for people to report things anonymously, so they don't have to worry about like retaliation or anything.
Wow, so it really is about creating this system where everyone feels responsible for protecting the bank, its money, its reputation, the whole thing. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about the day-to-day running of the branch? How does a bank manager make sure they're hitting those financial targets? Making money, basically.
Well, the source talks about setting goals, but not just any goals. They have to be clear, something you can actually measure, and they got to align with the bank's overall strategy. And then it's about breaking down those big goals into smaller chunks, things you can actually do, and assigning those tasks to different people on your team.
So it's kind of like creating a roadmap, making sure everyone knows their role in getting to the destination.
Perfect analogy. But
Mhm.
just as important, the source stresses agility, being able to adapt.
Because things don't always go as planned, right? In life and in banking, I guess.
Oh, for sure. It's about analyzing the data, seeing what's working, what's not, and adjusting the strategy accordingly.
So you're not just like stuck with the initial plan. You got to be flexible.
Exactly. Banking is a fast-paced world. Things change all the time. New competitors pop up. The market fluctuates.
Yeah, you got to roll with it, adapt or die, right?
Right. And that also means being open to new technologies, new ways of doing things. The source actually encourages bank managers to like push their teams to experiment, try new things, even if they're a little out there.
Oh, interesting. So it's not enough to just be tech savvy yourself. You got to foster that kind of innovation in everyone.
Exactly. Create a culture where people feel comfortable taking risks, trying new things, even failing sometimes.
Because that's how you learn, right? From those missteps.
Perhaps it's all part of the process.
Okay, so we've got fraud prevention, strategic planning, innovation. This bank manager role is a lot more than I thought it was, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of hats to wear.
Speaking of hats, the source also mentions community involvement as part of the job description. What does that look like, practically speaking?
It's about being present in the community, you know, supporting local businesses, getting involved in local initiatives, really building relationships that go beyond the walls of the bank.
So it's about being a partner, not just a place to park your money.
Exactly. And it's not just about being a good neighbor. It actually makes good business sense. Building those connections can really boost the bank's reputation, attract new customers, make the existing ones feel even better about banking with you.
It's a win-win for everyone involved.
Exactly. The bank's success is tied to the community's well-being. It's all connected.
Okay, love that. But before we wrap up this section, got to touch on one more thing, the financial side. How does the source address the bank manager's responsibility for, well, keeping costs under control, making sure the branch is profitable, basically?
It really comes down to efficiency, squeezing the most out of your resources. That means everything from negotiating good contracts with your suppliers to finding ways to save energy, in the branch itself.
So it's about being fiscally responsible, but without sacrificing that quality of service that customers expect.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. For sure, you got to keep costs low, but still make sure your customers are happy and that your team has a good, productive work environment.
Man, this is fascinating stuff. It's incredible how a bank manager's decisions touch so many different aspects of the branch, the community, even the industry as a whole. But we're not done yet. Stay tuned for our final part where we'll delve into those personal qualities that really make a bank manager shine. And we'll talk about what the future holds for this ever-evolving profession. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into, well, the minds of bank managers. We've talked about the challenges, the strategies, all that jazz. But now I want to get into something a little more, I don't know, personal.
Yeah.
What does the source say about the qualities that really make a bank manager stand out? Because it's got to be more than just like knowing how to crunch numbers, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the source actually has a whole section on what they call the X factor of a great bank manager. It's about those intangible things, personality, leadership, stuff that doesn't always show up on a resume.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What are these secret ingredients that make a bank manager, like, truly exceptional?
Well, one that comes up again and again is integrity. And I don't just mean being honest, though that's obviously a given when you're dealing with people's money. It's about consistently doing the right thing, even when it's tough, even when no one's looking.
So it's about, like, walking the walk, not just talking the talk, setting the example for your team when it comes to ethical behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your actions speak louder than words, especially as a leader. The source really emphasizes that, if you're cutting corners, bending the rules, your team's going to notice. And that could, erode trust, create a culture where it's okay to be a little, shady.
Yeah, that makes sense. But let's be real, this job sounds super stressful. Dealing with fraud, managing a team, staying on top of all those regulations. Ugh. How does a bank manager, not have a total meltdown with all that pressure?
That's where resilience comes in. The source talks about it as being absolutely essential for not just surviving this role, but thriving in it. It's that ability to bounce back from setbacks, learn from mistakes, and not let the inevitable challenges get you down.
So it's like that grit, that determination that helps you push through those tough days.
Exactly. The source even suggests that bank managers should try to reframe those challenges as opportunities for growth. It's all about mindset.
Love that. Okay, one more piece of the puzzle I'm curious about, innovation. We've talked about how fast the banking world is changing. So how does a bank manager, create a culture of innovation in their branch?
Another great question. The source actually frames that as a key leadership skill. It's about encouraging your team to think differently, to experiment, to challenge the way things have always been done.
So it's not just about being tech savvy yourself. It's about fostering that spirit of innovation in everyone around you.
Exactly. The source even suggests things like, You know, setting aside time for brainstorming sessions, encouraging your team to go to industry conferences, even creating a system to, like, reward innovative ideas.
It's about making it safe to try new things, even if they don't always work out.
Yeah, failure is just part of the learning process.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of bank management. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about the job itself, but about leadership, resilience, all those things that make someone successful in any field, really.
It's been fun. It's definitely a role that requires a unique mix of skills, that's for sure.
It's not just about numbers, it's about people, strategy, and always being ready for whatever comes next. So, to everyone listening, whether you're thinking about a career in banking or just curious about this world, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought. Keep learning, keep exploring, and who knows, maybe we'll see you behind the counter of a bank someday.